Okay, this is Doctor Your Docs, how to make a documentary for a school project. A documentary is a video that uses interviews primarily to talk about a person, a topic, or an event. So this is going to be an instruction of how to go about that in kind of a classroom setting. Your first task is to choose a good topic. Your school project is probably going to be short, so narrow it down. Instead of the Civil War, find something like the guns of the Civil War. Find a topic, be specific, and remember to stay in the guidelines of your teacher. Even if your subject is in the past, you can still probably find a person who is really informed on that subject. Get your parents, your teacher, or even a librarian can help you find people in the community who can help you with that. Next, do your research. Pre-interview that source person without a camera, just on the phone, and just talk to him or her. Get the whole story. Then, develop a list of questions that you can ask on the day of the interview. The next step is to schedule the interview. During your pre-interview, while you're talking to that person, schedule an on-camera interview and figure out a time and a place that's going to work. You can get more than one interview. In fact, if you know something about the subject, you can be interviewed for your documentary. Find a place where you can meet that is going to be quiet enough and have good lighting. You do not need a fancy camera. A mobile device will work. Your phone or an iPad, but remember to hold it the right way. This way, yes, see, movies are not this shape, right? They're this shape, so make sure that you hold it the right way. After that, make sure that your device has enough storage space on it. Video takes up a lot more space than pictures, so make sure that you've cleared whatever you need out to and you can record for about 10 minutes or more. The other thing you need to make sure is that the audio capture is good, that it picks up audio fairly well. So do a test. Grab a friend or a family member, do a test, play it back and listen. Can you hear them really clearly? Because that is by far the most important thing in your documentary. The other thing you might consider is if you have a tripod, putting your device on, putting your camera on a tripod. Devices don't necessarily fit on a lot of tripods, but you can get creative and figure out a way to stabilize your device. Even better, have somebody hold the camera while you do the interviewing and talking with your source. You're ready to record the interview. After you've done your test, it is time. You and your source should be facing each other with the camera right next to you. You want your interview to look at you and have a conversation with you, not to peek into the camera. It helps make them feel more comfortable, and it's going to look better on camera. So your goal is to just get them talking about the subject. The more comfortable that you make them feel, the more they're going to expound and elaborate on your questions. Here's a tip. You need to ask open-ended questions to get them talking. How I'm going to show you to edit the interview is we're going to take your questions out. So you need their responses to stand on their own. So when you take out your questions, it makes sense. For example, if you ask, "How did you feel when the Twin Towers fell?" If they respond, "Horrible, I didn't know what was going on." When you take out your question, that answer is not going to stand on its own. So try to encourage them to answer that in a complete way. If you don't get what you need the first time, it's okay to ask that same question again. You're going to be glad you did when you're editing this all together. Keep eye contact and listen. Listen for opportunities to ask a follow-up question to get more information on one of your questions and topics. Hearing your interview is the most important thing, but we want to try to make it look good as well. The closer you get, the better. Do you see how close I am? You can see my eyes. It's all here. Make sure that the eyes are in the top third of the screen. That's going to make sure that you don't have too much goofy headroom above your interview. Also, make sure that you can see the eyes, that there's enough light on the face. As well, with those other devices, the closer you get, the better the audio is going to be. Pay attention to what's in the background. Make sure that there's nothing really distracting. The next step is to record B-roll and gather pictures. B-roll is footage that supplements what is being said by the interview. This can be any number of things. This could be digital images that you get off the internet, but make sure, do your Google searches correctly and make sure you add the criteria labeled for reuse. Don't get copyrighted images. It can be as simple as filming photographs, their pictures that they have. If they have artifacts or things that they can show, film them showing those artifacts, get close-ups. Heck, even them watering their lawn. If they're talking about a personal story at all, you can cut to that image and that footage to make it more visually interesting. Now it's time to put it all together. The big question that I get a lot of time is, what editing program should I use? It doesn't matter. They all pretty much do the same thing. If you have an editing program already on your computer, use that. If you don't know how to use that editing program, Google search it. There's all kinds of tutorials out there. If you have a specific question, make sure you Google that as well. Most of them are pretty intuitive. If you're looking for free and online, wevideo.com, I heard, is a pretty good source. Your first step in editing, once you've created a project and imported all of your footage into your project, is to listen to the interview. Listen and search out those sound bites. Sound bites are those little nuggets of information after you've cut out your question that stand on their own. Use the sound bites to tell your story. Remember good narrative structure. You're telling a story. Have a beginning, middle, and end. Also, don't feel like you need to use the whole answer, especially if your interview kind of goes on and on. After you have a pretty good story going with your sound bites in the right order, now you need to illustrate with that supplementary footage, the B-roll and pictures, and add some visual interest. This is going to make it more interesting to watch, but B-roll is also going to make that edit a little bit more smooth, because when you put all those things together and cut out your question, it's going to look jumpy because they're sitting in the same place and it's going to get some jump cuts. When you add B-roll, you can use some of the natural sound that came with it. Like if they're showing how to use an instrument, use a little bit of that natural sound, but you're going to want to lower it or just take out all the audio completely. One of the last steps is to add graphics. You're going to want to add a couple things. You're going to want to add a title page. Come up with something clever for your documentary, a clever name, and then kind of an explanation of what it is. For example, Snuggly Snakes, Why Snakes Make Good Pets. You're going to want to do lower thirds. This is where you put the name of your interview and their title. Well, people can have a lot of different titles. What I'm looking for here is, why are they talking about this subject? This needs to appear on the lower part of your screen. The last thing is credits. It's a fun way to give credit to all those people who helped you in this project. Do not add a title card with your questions. You're not going to see it in real documentaries. If you need to illustrate, I would rather have you do a voiceover and put that over other footage. The last step to smooth everything out is adding a little bit of music. Again, we want to be careful about the music that we choose and find royalty-free music. One of my favorite sources is freeplaymusic.com. It's free when you select the education in classroom use criteria. Be sure to lower that music so you can hear your interview really well. Remember, hearing your interview is the most important thing. You think you're done? Have somebody check it. Check to see if it makes sense. Check to see if you can hear the interview, that you've spelled your graphics right. If you say yes to all of those things, then it's time to export. If you're using a video editing program, make sure that you export so it's a separate video file and you don't try to share the project file with somebody. A lot of applications have a share directly to YouTube feature, which is really convenient. Test it out before you turn it in, and then you're done. Wasn't that fun?